The idea you need a weapon that can have the ability to fire 20, 30, 40, 50, 120 shots from that weapon, whether it's a 9mm pistol or whether it's a rifle, is ridiculous. I'm continuing to push to eliminate the sale of those things.
Alright guys, welcome back to the Death by Tyranny podcast. Well, today I was going to go through some things that aren't being kind of outlined in the mainstream news about the vaccine and the FDA approval, because of course we're not being fed the whole truth. But every time that I look more into what's going on in Afghanistan, I get furious. It is outrageous how Biden keeps handling this situation, while he has his press secretary keep coming out and saying what's going on over there is a success, and it's not. So yesterday I jumped on Facebook Live just because there was so much not being said that I wanted to inform some of the people that might have been looking for information. I didn't have time to get on and do a whole podcast, and I left out something very important. About 4 days ago, some of you know a guy named Tim Kennedy. He is a veteran. He fought in the UFC. He is very popular, and he has a very large social media gathering. But more than that, and don't get me wrong, he has said some things in the 2A community that has been controversial at some point in time. But we have to put that aside right now, because what he is doing today is astonishing. It is way above and beyond what any American citizen should have to do for his fellow man. He has already served his time in the military and done great things there, and then went on to do a great deal of good beyond that. He is now opening up schools in Texas to teach kids the way that he and a lot of other people feel that kids should be taught nowadays, because the public schools are failing our kids. He runs Sheepdog Response, which is training civilians in self-defense and to be prepared and take some self-worth and try to protect their communities. But 4 days ago, he packed his bags and jumped on a plane along with others, not just him, but as of right now, the only person I know that has posted on social media about it is Tim Kennedy, and went over to the Kabul airport to try to help some of these people make it to the other side of those gates. Now, this was before the suicide bombings and the attacks and the gates, and they sealed them, of course. So he gets over there, and he manages to save, for the large portion in the pictures, what it looks like to be women and children, about 400 or so, and bring them into the gates, which is a lot more safer, because that's really where we only have military protection at, is on the other side of the inside of the gates there. And the 82nd Commander, Kesner, turned them away and kicked them out. So Tim Kennedy, on his own dime, his own time, and risking his own life, along with, I'm assuming, his friends and fellow associates, go out and save these 400 people, bring them back in, and because the ambassador of Afghanistan doesn't like the way that they were brought into the gates, the 82nd Airborne Commander Kesner kicks them out. That was 400 lives that we don't know will ever see the inside of those gates. And like I said, from the pictures, it looks like a large portion of them were women and children. And the 82nd Airborne Commander's response was, it's not the Tim Kennedy show. Who gives a fuck? Hopefully I can get the link shared to this video at some point in time in the day so you can go and listen to the Drinking Bros podcast where they go way more in depth than I will about this. And one of the guy on the podcast is good friends with Tim Kennedy, and he also served in the 82nd Airborne. They also have a guest on that is helping kind of guide the people over there from over here. And so there's just a lot of information over a span of about an hour and a half. And I mean, it will set you on fire to know that a civilian has to go over there and save these women and children. And because somebody feels like, maybe somebody's stepping on his pride a little bit, he pretty much signed women and children's death sentences because he didn't want Tim Kennedy to get the credit. That is outrageous. Anybody that is willing to go over there on their own dime and risk their own life and then saves people has more than every ounce of my respect. And for them to do this, I don't even know. And you're not seeing it. You're not going to see this on the mainstream news. You don't know that it's happening. And now we know that there has been bombs at the gates, and I'm sure those will continue, and it will be harder to get people on the other side to be flown out, as well as Biden's coming out and saying we might have to cut that deadline short. So the situation progressively gets worse and worse and worse every single day. You wake up to more bad news. And it's just an absolute failure by the Biden administration. And for them to come out and say it was a success, that takes a lot of couth. Now, another thing that we have to keep in mind is we were over there for a long time. There's a lot of good men and women who have served in Afghanistan. Some gave all, and they should always be remembered. But there are people that are still alive today in the United States, and they are having an emergency crisis in America with these veterans because they don't know why their friends died. And they're really having a crisis. So if you know one of those veterans that's having a tough time with this, reach out to them. Even if they don't seem like they are having a tough time with this, reach out to them. Now's the time where if you can do anything that you can to help someone, you should. These people gave up everything so we could have the freedoms that we enjoy today, and now they feel like they have fought for nothing. So just remind them they did not fight for nothing. And they can't look to the news and the Biden administration because they're pushing mandates everywhere you look on the news. So it doesn't really seem like we have a whole lot of freedom over here. It's getting worse every day with this administration. And I'm sure it is hard knowing how much you gave versus then and versus now to see what it really helped. So just make sure that they know, that you know, that they went over there and they gave all, and they sacrificed everything they could for your freedoms. And we should all keep that in mind when they are trying to get the private sector to mandate this stuff, because the government doesn't have the fucking balls to do it themselves. You can't sue Pfizer. Remember that. Biden made sure that they were protected. But understand, your companies that you work for, your school districts, they can be sued. So don't quit. Don't get vaccinated if you don't want to. You make them mandate it. You make them fire you, and then you sue their fucking balls off. Because people are winning these cases. There was a case up in Michigan where a teacher won a lawsuit against a vaccine mandate. I tried looking it up, and even from the people that I heard it from, say that you can't find it. And you can find it, but you can't find any details on it. And this is only the beginning. And the really sad part is we all seen this coming. The day shit turned sideways and we found out we only had the Kabul airport and we had to trust the Taliban to get our people to the other side of the fence safely. I can't count how many people I heard, and myself included, saying they're making a kill box. Anybody who would ever want to do America any harm has a location, has a time frame, and lots of people they can target right now. It would not take a whole lot to turn this into a very bad situation, and that they did. You should not be able to predict American lives being lost because of an administration's incompetence. That should never happen. It might be sketchy, but you should not be able to predict American service members dying because of what Biden and our military leadership put in place over there. Now, I will try my best to stay away from that topic for the rest of the podcast, but I don't know that I can, because a lot of it plays back into the vaccine mandates and what's going on with COVID, because those people were over there to keep us safe from terrorists. Those people fight every day for us to keep our freedoms, and the government isn't doing their part. And these people that apparently don't have any other god to worship, or just don't believe in religions at all, are looking to the government for some type of god, because they clearly aren't making rational decisions. And quite frankly, they must be ignorant to think that they can make decisions for other people. So the vaccine was approved by the FDA, or so you would believe. If you turned on the mainstream news today, you would believe that the FDA approved the Pfizer vaccine, and that is not the case. It was extended for emergency use. The full approval cannot be done until the complete study has come out. Well, the complete study, and I've heard all the ways up to 2025, but the soonest I have heard that it could be complete is 2023. So again, you want us to vax our children, and the private sector wants to mandate vaccines for a vaccine that the studies won't even come out until 2023. And understand, every bit of this was rushed. It was rushed. Do you really think that they were going out and testing it on old, sick people? No. Most people don't, because they know that they're going to have deaths recorded on their study if they do that. So the first people they came out and did studies on were very healthy individuals. So now all we have to look forward to gather information about side effects and deaths is the VAERS database, or whatever that they say is just like a self-recorded, documents to, if you have like side effects and everything. And a lot of people use that to dismiss what they have reported. But keep in mind, a lot of those people are doctors. So it can't just be dismissed in total. And that is what the FDA uses. They're not doing the studies. They rushed it out. Their studies aren't going to be complete for years. So the only thing we have to look to is that database. And if you want to consider this an approval, which it was not, it was the fastest approval to date. Pfizer was sued in 2009 I got some more information on that. I do believe it was the biggest lawsuit in history. And understand, in 2009 here, the FDA approval was a little bit different. Okay, and I'll explain that in just a second. So September 2nd, 2009, Pfizer promoted the sale of Bextera, maybe, for several users and dosages that the FDA specifically declined to approve due to safety concerns. Well, that was in 2009 when the government, for a large part, was the one who funded how people get approved through the FDA. Well, in 2012, that changed because there was a lot of people that said, hey, we shouldn't be paying for Big Pharma to get their stuff approved through the FDA. They should have to fund that. And they did. They changed it. So now the FDA is being funded by Big Pharma to get things approved. Does that seem like there's a whole lot of oversight being done there? Does that seem like there's a whole lot of room for some shadiness to go on? It does to me. So these are things you got to keep in mind, as well as the FDA approved OxyContin and fentanyl, and you've seen how that turned out for the American people. I would be willing to say, if other than like CRT and the attack, anti-racism bullshit that's going on with the Democratic Party and all these slave-minded type people attacking white male and just Christians in general, I would be willing to say the biggest threat to that group of people is the opiate epidemic. So understand that the FDA has its hand in that epidemic already as well. And I know people personally that have died and OD'd from OxyContin. I personally know people that are addicted to fentanyl. So, this FDA approval thing, and people are like, well, now we can go get the facts. I hold your horses. And I've already mentioned the teacher winning the lawsuit up in Michigan, and I believe that was over he had previously had COVID, which is another thing. He had COVID, and so he was saying, hey, I have the antibodies, I don't need the vaccine. And I believe that is why he won that case, but I do believe he also used religious reasons as well. Just understand, people are winning those lawsuits against colleges and school boards and companies. It is happening. It's happened in Canada. It's probably not going to happen in Australia. Let's just be honest. That's probably a lost cause at this point. I wish them the best and pray for them, but I don't know if they're coming out of that one on the better end. And then the FDA or not the FDA, but the CDC and the World Health Organization doesn't want to come out and admit that people that have had COVID are better protected from COVID than people who are vaxxed, because their body is building antibodies for all the spike proteins in COVID variants, not just the Alpha variant and the Bravo variant. And that's why people with the vaccine are catching it, because it wasn't designed for the Delta variant. So they're just now coming out on that, and there is no studies. They don't study, they're not keeping track of the people who have had COVID and may have caught it again, and what those antibodies that are naturally obtained are doing. You know why? Because it's free. It's that when you say herd immunity, that's where that comes from. Not let's take experimental vaccines until the shit's coming out of our eyeballs because we have to get booster shots every six months, which they have backtracked from 8 months now to 6 months. And quite frankly, in my opinion, I believe that's why we're getting the variants. I mean, you only protect yourself from so many things, and then naturally the viruses are gonna, kind of linger around and do what they want. When we could just all get immune to COVID in general and probably be better off. All right, now, and YouTube has officially come out and said that they are going to start banning videos and channels on the premise that they are promoting vitamin C and D to protect from COVID-19. We're going off the deep end here. So vitamin C no longer helps your immune system, apparently, according to YouTube. So I don't know what we're going to do about, airborne and all that stuff like that that's been promoted for all these years. I guess it doesn't fit the narrative. And to backtrack a little bit, I know people that have gotten the vaccine, and their reasoning for getting the vaccine wasn't that they thought that it was going to save the world or because they thought the mandates were good or anything like that. They got it because they said, hey, I got the shot, I can take this fucking mask off and I can live my life. Well, that's what they said. And now you can be vaxxed, still have to wear a mask. It isn't one shot, it isn't two shots, it's 3 shots. They're talking about a 4th shot. There have already been leaked information coming out about COVID-22. Have you heard anything about that in the mainstream media? COVID-22, not COVID-19, COVID-22. So, and Fauci, he said that we weren't going to get over this all until the fall of 2022. People got pissed off. He backtracked it and said, I meant to say spring, which we all know he's full of fucking shit. I mean, you can't listen to a whole speech of that guy and not realize he's lying through his asshole. So, just prepare yourself for that when this COVID-19 does start to dwindle away for COVID-22 to pop up. And back to so you got vaccinated so you could be free again, and you're still not free. So before you go get that 3rd booster shot, maybe you want to do a little bit more research. Maybe you want to stop pushing people to get the vax that don't want it. Now, I'm not saying don't get it. If you want to go get it, go get it. If you are in the range of people that are seeing severe side effects from COVID-19, then by all means, if you think it protects you, don't talk about it, be about it. But, like I said before, the only reason you should need not to get the vaccine is, I don't fucking want it. And now they're lying more, saying that the FDA approved it when that's not quite the truth. So, I mean, what are you going to do? And like I said, you make them mandate it. If you don't want the vaccination, you make them mandate it. You make them fire you. And you get a lawyer. And eventually there's going to be a tipping point. And I hate to say that, you always have these leftist types saying that, January 6th, even though that's their only one example they have. Yet, you know what conservatives do? They put their fucking boots on and they go over to Afghanistan and they save 400 people just for leftists and the Biden administration to kick those people out to their deaths. And all conservatives do is try to do the right thing over and over and over and over again. But there's going to be a pushing point or a tipping point. And it's not the conservatives that want that. I mean, you can only back a dog in a corner for so long and hit it with a whip before it starts to protect itself. And I tell you what, when you go to vote, not all the Republicans are good guys. I am so tired of getting on news channels and podcasts and hearing all these Republicans talk this big game and all these conservatives that want to talk this real big game, and then the second half of the segment is them backpedaling so they can draw in some of them Democrats and get the approval. Why do we need their approval? We knew we were doing the right thing. If those are your morals and your opinions, then stick by them. We do not need permission from them. And quite frankly, after what they have done through the last year, I don't want their permission. If they've given us permission, it probably means we're doing the wrong thing. We have a lot of cowards in the Republican Party, and we need to weed a lot of those people out. It's time to start paying attention to politics a little bit more, and that sucks, and I know a lot of people don't like doing that, but that's just the way the things are moving in that direction now. You have to understand, we got in this situation because we just left it up to government to do something about it. And then the leftists started paying attention, and they started doing more than the conservatives and the Republicans. So at some point, we all have to start paying a little bit more attention. That's just what it is. And then you have Japan halts taking 1.63 million Moderna vaccines because they can clearly see that there are foreign substances in the vials of these vaccines. How they got there, if they developed over time, I'm not quite sure, but you're not going to see a whole lot of that in the mainstream as well. And then before I get off here, I just want to jump back to Afghanistan a little bit. Where are we getting this notion that we should be leaning further to the center? And all the people that are in the center are kind of one way versus another. Why? The Democrats and the left and the Biden administration has given you no reason to move further to their side at all. And they definitely haven't done anything for their pitch about uniting the country together. We're just getting more and more divided. We united for like a day or two when Afghanistan flipped upside down. But even that it's only going to put us in a worse situation, right? We kick Biden out, what? We get Kamala? And we don't even know if that's necessarily true. There are ways to sidestep that process. But guess who's third in line? Pelosi. So there is no hope in sight for the top leadership position in America. We just have to wait it out for this next 3 years. So stop trying to justify siding with these people. We already have to find a way to survive for the next 3 years. We don't want to hear your bullshit. Just stop it. I say it all the time, you know, there were too many people that said that Biden had the worst foreign policy ever. He never, was right on anything he ever did when it came to foreign policy. And if Trump put in something to get us out of Afghanistan, Biden using this, well, I had to do it, man. Trump signed us up for it. He didn't bother not overturning every single thing else that Trump did that led us in a worse direction. So what? Trump signed us up for it. If you seen a better way, then why didn't you do it? But that's where the lie is. He did do something different. Yeah, he kept to pulling out of Afghanistan, but he definitely didn't do it the way, and we can't even say what way Trump would have did it, but he did it the Biden way, which is fuck up as much shit as possible on your way out. You guys gotta start paying more attention. Start paying more attention. And just a little side note, I was going through my emails right before I hopped on here, and I seen something about we might be heading into an optic shortage, like for firearm accessory optics. So if you were on the fence or near going out and buying one, you might want to go ahead and do that while you can. And I really hope they put some of these ATF new rulings and shit on the back burner until we can figure out what's going on in Afghanistan, until we can figure out what's going on with the vaccine situation. It's time to slow down a little bit, pay more attention, and really find some ways to fix some of the issues that we have in front of us. Because we know what they're going to do. They're just going to keep throwing it at us. And that's what they've done with gun control for a long time. They never come out with one thing at a time. It's always a bunch of things spread out across the board all the time. That way they wrap us up in lawsuits and court cases, and they can squeeze something in. So, I don't know, guys. Like I said, there's a good podcast on Drinking Bros. I believe the YouTube channel is Drinking Bros Podcast channel on YouTube. And this is going to be titled Terror in Afghanistan, Drinking Bros Fake News 115. I definitely, like I said, it pissed me off listening to it, but at the same time, it has a lot of information that will tell you a whole lot about what's going on over in Afghanistan, a lot better than I could. I'm just kind of hitting the high points here. And if you're on Instagram, maybe go check out Tim Dillon. Like I said, he is there, boots on the ground, and from what I've seen, sometimes he can seem a little over the top, but he is definitely good-hearted, and I believe he only has the best intentions. And I don't believe that he would put anything out there that would negatively affect anything that's going on over there. As well as you have, I believe it's Fieldcraft Survival they have a YouTube channel as well, but I follow them on Instagram, and that's Mike Glover's company, and he's got a lot of good preparedness videos. I actually, even when you're looking at the preparedness community and like the prepper community, a lot of people say that Mike's really the one leading that charge. And he brings on women and stuff, like, if you don't really know what to do as the wife in the home, or plans to come up with for emergencies with your children, they do a lot of good testing and research and training as far as that goes. There's a couple guys in Fieldcraft Survival I don't really agree with. There's a Middle Eastern guy they have on their podcast sometimes that I don't really care for. Doesn't really believe civilians should own night vision and stuff like that, but that's beside the point. You can still get, like I said, we got to be done with the infighting. If you don't agree with it, everything somebody says, but they have good points, then take the good points and move on. That's pretty much where I'm at. Not everybody's going to be right about everything. You got to kind of bounce around and get the information you can and kind of come up with your own conclusion. Be a critical thinker. We can't sit here and criticize the left and then just only do what they do, but for our team, that's not going to lead us in a good direction either. So I don't usually do these during the days, but my kids aren't back in school and I couldn't sleep. I got to work tonight, so I really got to get to bed. So, all right, you guys stay safe. I love you guys. Stay prepared. Peace, y'all.